Okay, well, thanks so much for attending the webinar this morning. We're going to be going through an overview of SpiraTeam, our application lifecycle management solution. We are recording this, so if anyone couldn't make it, we will actually be posting on our YouTube channel. The agenda today is going to be going through an overview of SpiraTeam, through the various features, from requirements management and the planning boards, test management, scheduling and execution, defect management, task and resource management, and then Q&A. And this is an overview of how SpiraTeam fits into the Inflectra suite. We have the SpiraTeam ALM solution, which is the core of our application lifecycle management platform. And then we have integrating with SpiraTeam our Rapise test automation platform and Chronodesk, our IT support and help desk ticketing system. And we will be having webinars in the future on these two areas as well. Now, this webinar today, if you're listening to it, is an introduction to SpiraTeam. However, for existing users, it may also be of interest because we will be demonstrating the system using the latest version, which was released approximately 1 day ago. And we'll be updating all of our cloud customers this Saturday. So if you want to see what it looks like before release, now is a good time. Okay, so now we're going to be going into SpiraTeam itself. So for those who are new to the system, SpiraTeam is a system designed to manage projects and programs. And when you first come into SpiraTeam, we've logged in as Fred Blogs, one of our sample users. You're going to come to this homepage. This is the homepage for one of Fred's projects. And the way SpiraTeam is organized is we have projects, which are in orange right here, and when we have programs, which are the items in white. And so typically, if you have a system that consists of multiple versions and releases, those will all be contained in one SpiraTeam project. And then if you have different projects for different customers or different departments, you can group them into a department or a client, and that would typically be a program, which would be the item in white, internal projects. And there are 3 views of a project. We have a general view, a development view, and a testing view. And they're basically just pre-configured dashboards for the project. You can go to any of the dashboards and choose modify layout or add items, and you can customize the widgets that appear on any of the views. So you could add any of the testing widgets to the development view or to the general view. But we have these 3 views out of the box that you can use on any project, so you don't have to do that right from the beginning. And for example, in our testing view, you will see we have our test run progress graph, so we can see the progression of our testing activities over the project. If you go to the requirements coverage section, you will see we can check what is the quality of all the requirements in the project. So we've got these things we're going to be building for the next version. We want to know, do they have test cases associated with them? Have they passed? Have they failed? Or, as in this case, do we have a large hole where we have 49% of our requirements don't actually have any test cases? Furthering on the testing theme, you do have the ability to see the test status in its current state, how many test cases have passed, how many have failed, and how many have been run each day. And this run count here is very similar to the graph here, just in textual form. We also have a new graph that we added recently, the test case progress graph, that lets you show the cumulative progress of your testing activities towards the ultimate goal of all the tests being done. So whereas this was a test progress graph of how much activity is being done, this test case one is how much progress are you making towards everything being tested. And that's why it's an area graph. We also have the ability to look at the test sets, which are the groups of test cases we'll see later on in our scheduling to see what's the progress of all of those. And we also can see the information around defects, because when you run tests and they fail, we do unfortunately have defects. And so you'll see tables, for example, the defect summary table, which you can filter by defect type. And you can see the graphs of defects, both the open and close count, and also a list of the open ones by priority. We also do have an instant test coverage graph as well, and some of the graphs are new in the latest version. For example, this new donut style graph is something we've added recently. In the development view, we also have a view which has got a mixture of graphs and charts. Some of the items that are specific to this view would be the list of builds. So if you're using a continuous integration server like Jenkins or TeamCity, which we have plugins for, you can see the most recent builds right here and whether they passed or failed. And when we click into a build later on, we'll be able to see what was committed into the build and what tests were run, what passed or failed for each build. The other thing you can do is see the source code commits. Unfortunately, this graph only has one set of commits. as you commit more into the system in the source code section, you'll see a bar graph, similar to what you see on GitHub. For Agile projects, we also have burn down and burn up graphs. So you can see how you're doing against your objectives. We also have a velocity graph, which compares the average velocity and the trending velocity. And then you can look at the requirements test coverage by priority as well. We also will show you important things like any tasks that are late finishing or any tasks that are late starting. And then finally, we do have an instant aging graph. So you can see, do we have a lot of defects that are very old in the system, or are we staying current? And then for the program manager, when you come in from a program level, so this is the project level, at the program level, we also have a dashboard. Currently only has one view, and that lets you see your requirements test coverage across all 4 projects in our current program. You can see how many have passed, how many failed, again, how many do not have any test cases. And you can look at your test progress across the entire program, and you can see your task progress and defect counts, as well as builds for each project in the program. So it gives you a nice dashboard of the different areas: development, testing, and task management. This is an area of future investment for Inflectra. We will be investing significant energy in the year ahead in enhancing the planning capabilities as well at the program level. But right now, we do have, in the planning section, we do have the planning board, which lets you look at an entire program. So for example, I could choose the program backlog, and I can see all of the requirements and user stories across my entire program. I can do it by priority, I can do it by status, what's requested, what's under review, what's rejected, and then I can see, once they've been assigned to a project, I could see by project, for example, which requirements are in each project and where the status is. And we also will have these mini cards which will show you the tasks and the test cases for each story. And this is showing it across all 4 projects in my program by the 4 projects. So these are the requirements in DCAST project, in library system, in sample 1 there aren't any, and SpiraPlan webinar. And you can then view across the entire program by priority, so that way you don't have to look at it on a per project basis. You can see what's critical across all projects, what's high across all projects, for example. And you can drag and drop things as well. So that's the program planning board that we have. When we drop back into the project, within SpiraTeam, we have the lifecycle organized into 3 main areas: planning, testing, and tracking. And so just to start at the beginning, in the requirements section, we support both Agile and Waterfall lifecycles, or a hybrid, and so you'll see in here a traditional requirements matrix, which is a hierarchical view of all your requirements and use cases and user stories and features and system quality, such as maintainability, scalability. All of those things will be in this centralized hierarchy, which lets you organize things very easily. You can expand and collapse, indent, outdent, and for each requirement, you can also see the test coverage. What percentage of this particular requirement is passed, what percentage is failed, and if there are failures, how serious are they? You can click on the requirement and drill down and see which specific test case is actually failing, and also in this case which one is not run. Similarly, for each requirement, you can see the progress of the tasks. So when you have a requirement, you will have development activities, and you can see from the color coding, yellow means not started, red, like this one here, means there are tasks running late, and gray means there are tasks in the future. And we'll drill down in just a second to see what that actually looks like. Of course, you can filter this list. So you can go in here and say, find me all of my requirements that have got no test cases, which is important, or maybe find all the requirements that have tasks running late. The other thing you can do is view the exact same information in an Agile Kanban or Scrum board, and this is similar to the one we just saw for the program, but this one is now at the project level, and all those requirements on that view you see here are in fact the same things you'll see here. So that way you can have an Agile view and a more traditional view, and the data is all being kept the same. When you click on a specific requirement, that will drill us down into the requirements detailed page, and this gives us all of the information of the requirement. And this was redesigned in the most recent version, and it lets you edit the name of the requirement right here. Down here is the description field, which is a full rich text editor. You can paste in screenshots, you can have links, tables, lists, anything you need to describe the requirement. And then we have the various other fields at the top here. The people, which could be the person who wrote the requirement, the person who it's assigned to. If you have any custom fields or people watching the requirement who might be subscribing to it, then they could also be potentially added to that people list as well. As well as that, we do have a workflow engine built into SpiraTeam. So this is a requirement that is currently tested, and in the operations section, that's where you can move the requirement backwards and forwards in the workflow. And when you do that, for example, if we mark this one as completed, some of the fields will become grayed out because it's been finished with. Or if you revert back, they'll become enabled again. So you as the administrator can actually control, and this is true throughout SpiraTeam, which fields are required, which fields are optional, and which fields are hidden. You also has a comment tracking built in. So if we go down here, users can log in and add feedback. And right here in the comment section, right here, we have Fred, this is me logging a comment, and there is an instant messenger. So if this wasn't me, I could actually go in here and send a message. Like I could send one to Joe, hi Joe, we need to talk about this requirement. And this instant messenger is built in throughout SpiraTeam. But one of the nice features is not only can you send instant messages, but when you have a conversation that leads somewhere, you might want to take and tag that particular message and post as a comment. And that way it gets archived into the requirement, which is nice. Now, as well as being able to edit the requirement itself, we also have various tabs where you can see the test coverage and the task. So this is showing us where we have 2 test cases that are linked to this requirement, and we can add new test cases to the requirement right here. Or we could go in, for example, and we can create a new test case directly from the requirement if one doesn't already exist. And we can search really easily, just choose functional tests. You can then add checkboxes to them and add them, and that will add them to the actual requirement. Similarly for tasks, get rid of that tooltip, you can then write new tasks against this requirement. So this is a requirement to edit books, and we have some tasks for building the screen, building the functionality, and building the database. And you could go in here and add a new task to it as well, and that will create a new task against this requirement. Maybe it's verify the object model or something. So you can go in here, add that task, fill out the information and save it. And that then gets tied to that requirement, and when that task is done, the requirement will change in status back to completed. And in fact, you notice the status did in fact change to in progress because of that change we just made. So that way, when all the tasks are done, when all the test cases are done, the requirement is then complete. There is a history tracking built in as well, so you can see all the changes made to the requirement, and there's an audit trail built in throughout SpiraTeam. So that way, if someone makes a change and you want to be able to track in the history what happened, you can see this history and audit trail. There's also an administration view where you can actually revert changes and undo changes as well. And then finally, we do have the ability to link things throughout the system. So this is the Associations tab, where you can see everything linked to this requirement. There could be other requirements elsewhere in the tree. You can create dependency relations or just simple links. You can also tie it to source code revisions, which we'll see in a minute, where you can actually tie fixes, commits to specific features that were added. The other thing we have in SpiraTeam is a central release management view. This is where you put the master schedule. And within SpiraTeam, we have the ability to track major releases and minor releases. And then for agile products, we have iterations or sprints. And then we also do have, if you're doing a waterfall project like this one here, release 2, you can have traditional waterfall phases like the concept phase, requirements design, development, UAT, and so on phases as well. And that lets you manage a combination of a agile project, waterfall project, or even one that has elements of the two in a so-called hybrid. Another nice feature within SpiraTeam is if you go into planning documents, whenever I attach something to a requirement or a test cases, there is a central document management system built in where you can have documents organized into folders and subfolders. So you can go into different folders by just clicking on them like here. And all of the documents in the system will be listed here. If you click on one, you've got the ability to view the document, and you can preview it depending on the type. This one is a Word doc, so it doesn't preview. An image or a text file will preview, or code windows. And then the other thing you do have is the ability to see all the different versions of that document and upload a new version, or go in the Associations tab and link this one document to a different requirement or a different test case. The benefit there is that if I have to upload a new specification or diagram, all of the requirements using it will pick it up. So that's an overview of the planning section. We've gone through how you enter requirements, the requirements tracking features, the planning board for agile projects, the release view, and the documents view. The other thing we then have is the entire quality management system. And so for quality management, that's where you would go into SpiraTeam, and that's where you can write your test cases. So if we go in here to the test case view, you can take your requirements that you've already entered in the system or in your planning board, and you can generate test cases directly from them. To do that, we can go back into requirements, and we can just click a few items, for example, these ones, and we can go in here and say tools, create test cases. If we don't have the test cases already, that's not a problem. We can just write them directly here or upload them from a spreadsheet or a Word document. And when you write a test case in SpiraTeam, it will be organized into a folder, and you can navigate between them very easily like this. And when you look at a particular test case, you will see that it has an overview section where you have the standard fields, the type of test case, and we have a new type called Exploratory we recently added, and we have a webinar in 2 weeks' time which will be explaining that new feature and the way we can do exploratory testing as a whole new type of testing in SpiraTeam. But for today, just know that we do have different types of tests you can store. We have different statuses. There's a workflow engine built in. So this test case is ready for test. Depending on my role, I might be given the option to change it to obsolete or verified or move it back into in the life cycle. And the other thing that's really important is the suspect flag. If ever you have a test case that you've written and approved and someone changes the requirement, the suspect flag will get automatically set if someone changes the requirement. And that way you can go back to your test case list, for example back here, and say, you know, there's a bunch of test cases that might have changed. I need to verify them, review them. So that way you can go back, review them all, and then go into these 3 test cases, make the changes, or just mark them as not suspect. So that way it's really easy to review all the impacts in one go. For each test case, we do then let you write the test script. And for manual testing, they're typically going to be in a form of steps. So we have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. These are the 6 steps that you would do to carry out your test case. You're going to log in, go to the main menu, click on a link, enter the name of the book, choose the genre, and click a button. Very typical test case. Now, there's also a nice feature where you can link things in. So what we've done here is we actually chose a step and did insert link, and we can then go to our repository of other test cases, and you can then choose one, for example, let's say the login one, and you can pass in different parameter values like the browser, the login, the password, and that creates what we see here, which is the login link. And that lets you have reusable test cases which you can then use in multiple places. And the benefit there really is that if I have to change my login page and I've got 100 test cases all logging in, I can change it in one place and all 100 test cases will pick up the change, which is the big time saver. Now, the other thing is we do have automated testing. And for automated testing, we have the automation section underneath, and that's where you enter in the automation script. And depending on the type of tool, this one is using our own Rapise tool, which is a test automation system. You can actually upload the entire test repository of folders and files. For some other test case systems, like for example Selenium, you could embed a Selenium script right here. For other tools like HPUFT, for example, those are entire project folders. We can link to them, which is just simply the path to that test case on the system running it. And then you'll use either Rapise or our remote launch integration engine to actually schedule and run these tests on the different machines. But this is where you link the test case to the automation script. And there's also a comment system built in, as we saw before. Another thing you can do is also check which requirements are linked to it. So this particular test case is right now supporting these 2 requirements. You can also add and remove the links in the same way using this easy to use add and remove feature. You can view all the test runs of this test case. So this particular test case has been run many different times. If I want to see the results on it, I can click or control click. If I control click, I get a separate tab, which can be very nice, so I can go back very easily. And this will show me the results of this test case. The release it was run in, the people that did the testing, the main attributes, the properties, how long it took, and underneath will be the actual details where you'll see step by step what happened, what passed, what failed, and you'll see any incidents that were logged. There's a defect right here. And if you actually go to the incident tab, you can see all the defects linked to it in one table. A new feature we added is also for exploratory testing. You may also have tasks linked to a test run. If it's an exploratory test and the system isn't yet finished, you may want to log developer tasks as opposed to defects, and we have added the ability to now track tasks against specific test runs. So once you've written your test case, if we go back, and you want to run it, what you'll typically want to do is put it into a test set. So this is our test case, and we can see it's already in these 7 different test sets, and so this is how we will typically schedule it. We'll put this test case into a set and then assign the set to someone. And to do that, we'll actually usually go to the main test set page, and that will show you all the test sets in the entire project. So these are our I think 12 different test sets we have. You can look at them in different folders. You can drag and drop them between folders, create as many folders as you like. It's very similar to the test case view. You can search, you can sort. If you go to an actual test set, let's look at this one. What you'll see is you actually have a test set. It's currently got 4 not run, 4 failed, and 2 passed, which you can see in the color indicator. And you can see it's planned for 2007, which is not very helpful, so we typically want to reschedule that. You can also have it recur on a schedule, so I could run it at 9 o'clock every day, or maybe just once. And the other thing you can do is determine if this is for manual testing or automated testing. For manual testing, what will happen is you will typically want to assign it to a person and run it once. For automated testing, you'll usually assign it automated, assign it to a machine, say one of these computers like TARDIS, which is my computer, and then you can then set it to run every day. If you are using a continuous integration system like Jenkins, there's also the option to schedule on build, and when you do that, it means whenever the build runs and passes against this release, it will automatically schedule it to run. So that way you don't have to maintain a separate schedule in SpiraTeam and Jenkins. Underneath we do have, I'll just close this, we do have a list of all the test cases and the parameters. So these are our test cases we're going to run in this set, and then these are the parameters we're going to pass through. These are the parameter values. And once you're happy with your test, you can just go ahead and execute it. I'll just make it manual first. Put it back. And when you go to execute, that's when you can actually run the test case. So this is our test execution wizard, and that's how a tester would then run the test. They'd be assigned to them, they get an email, they either click on the link or go to the My page when they first come in, and they can then check on the link. And this will then walk them through the test cases step by step. And so for testers, they'll come in here and pass their test cases, like that. And at some point you may get a failure, so we'll just put in a failure, failed with a 404 error. We'll put in a screenshot. I'll just put in the current screen like that. There we go. And I will log a defect to go with it. These are my existing defects that are actually already linked. So I can either just link this defect or add a new one. So we'll add a new one, which will be, missing page bug. And we choose the type, which is bug. I'll fill out the priorities high. Okay, and then I can log the bug by hitting fail. That logs the bug and moves to the next step. And that's how you do the testing. And when you go back into the test results, you will see our new test cases logged today. And if you click on it, you'll see a new test run right here. And there's our test run. You can see step by step what happened, and there's also a nice little embedded image as well with an option for full screen, of course. So that's how you do the testing side of things, and there's an option to retest when the system is ready, and it will hopefully then pass the next time. The other thing you can do is also do your defect management within SpiraTeam. There's a full bug tracking system. That's how you would log a bug through testing. There's also the option to log a bug directly by hitting new incident, or just do Shift-I on the keyboard, and that will then take you into the new bug logging page. So you can quickly log bugs. As the administrator, you set which fields are required. Some of these ones like operating system and web browser, we put in here just to actually demonstrate the functionality. So you could decide which fields are required, which fields are optional, and balance between having too many fields, which may make a defect too slow to log it, or you want to capture the fields because you want that information. So it's a good balance between having a lot of information that's useful for the tester, but also making it streamlined for the developer to log. And then once you do have a defect logged, we don't need to log a new one, we have one already. You can then use the workflow system to triage it and resolve it. So we would go in here, and I can assign this to, let's say, Joe. So let me assign that to Joe. And hit save. It'll warn me if any fields are required, and they are, so the start date needs to be set. And we do have effort tracking built in, so I can track how long it's going to take. I think it will take 5 hours. We'll actually see when we actually get through this. And you can track in the system the original estimate for the defect how long it's taking so far, how much time is remaining, and the system will then give you a projected amount of total time and a completion percentage automatically. And you'll see that right here. And there is a full defect tracking system built in, and one of the things you can also do is if you want to add someone, maybe I want to add someone else to follow this because I know that they're very interested in this defect, so Donna might be added. You can add them to the system, and then you'll see all the followers right here. So that's the defect tracking functionality. The other thing I had mentioned earlier on is also the developer view, so that when we go in back to our requirements page, when I go back to that original book, if you remember, we had some tasks. So these are my tasks. These can then be assigned to different developers. And that way the developers will then work on the tasks and they roll up then against the requirement. So if we go into the task management view, all of the tasks will be logged right here, and you could go in here and find, let's say, find a task that's starting late. We can then click on it, and this is the task that the developer is working on. You can see it's a development task for back-end development, and it was assigned to Fred. No, to Fred by Fred, which is me. And so you can go in here, and let's say Fred has actually done some work on it. They could say, start the task, and maybe we've actually spent 1 hour against it, like that. We hit save, and it will update the progress. And actually, and the remaining effort's important. So let's say we've got 1 hour left. So hit save. So that's good. So now we've made some progress. So now it's gone from being not started to being about 2/3 complete, but it's significantly late. So it goes red, but you see the progress bar. And the task management system lets you have each developer track all the tasks, and they roll up to the parent requirement right here, and then up to the release that it belongs to, and the sprint or iteration. And there's also comment tracking. So if we have comments like, I need some help with the front-end framework, you can have communication between the developer and other developers, or the requirement owner. There's also instant messaging built in as well, so that way I could send a message to the requirement owner or the tester, other people, or other people in general who may be able to help me with this. And similarly, I might want to subscribe someone to this as well, so I could add a follower, someone who can help me out with it. So I'll add Bernard. And once you add Bernard, you can send them a message. So that does foster communication between the different team members. So that's a little bit of the task management functionality. And then the other thing we do have is the resource view. Now you have this in two places. We have this list view where you can see all the people on a project, on a program, or a sprint or release. You can see how much time they've taken, how much they've been allocated. The other thing you do have is the ability to see this on the planning board in a more graphical form, and that lets you do dynamic reassignment. So if I go back into my product view, I can look at release 1, and I can say by person, and I can see the same thing I see on that list view, which is right here, but I'll see it in a graphical form like this. These are all the people, this is everything they've been assigned, and I could say, Fred's overloaded, let's take this and give it to Ricky, for example. And that will update the available count, the utilized count as well. So that lets you see a list view and a board view of the people and what they're working on. Then if you go into a particular person in either place, you can see this person, in this case it's me, Fred. I can see my current set of assignments. So I've got these requirements and tasks assigned. This is my progress. I can see the defects that I'm assigned. In this case there's none in this release. The test cases I have to work on. I can also see the test sets and any actions. So there's also an audit trail. So if I want to find what a person's been doing, maybe they've got some activity, maybe they've been doing things, I can go in and verify what were they actually working on. Also, if someone leaves the company, you can go back over their last 2 days worth of actions to make sure that there wasn't anything strange going on. And then finally under tracking, we have the source code view. This lets you tie SpiraTeam into your source code management system. And we do have plugins for for Subversion, for Git, for Mercurial, for Microsoft's Team System, Visual Source Safe, CVS, and Perforce/Helix. For cloud customers, we also do offer a cloud-hosted source code management system called Tara Vault that is basically a Git and or Subversion hosting system fully integrated. And the hosting system does let you have different branches of source code. So for example, this is our master branch. We could view a different branch. When you go into different folders, you can see different files in the folder, so it lets you browse the repository. If you click on a particular file, you can see a preview of the code, which is nice. You can see for this branch. You can also see all the revisions of that, and you can see if there's a revision, why was it changed? In this case, revision 12, we actually implemented a requirement and finished a task. So we can control click on it, and if we're using the build server, we can also see which build these revisions were into, like this one. So that way, when a bug gets fixed or a task gets implemented, you can see exactly what was changed and why did this code get committed. So they said they fixed it. What did they do? So in implementing that task, develop new screen, we would like to see all the files that were committed to do that. And if a bug is fixed but there's no check-ins, then maybe there's a mistake going on, or maybe someone forgot to do something, or it's in the wrong branch, something like that. So it lets you have an audit trail as to the code level. When we say we're doing something, do we actually have check-ins to prove it? And we do have plugins for most of the IDEs on the market right now. We have plugins for Visual Studio, for Eclipse, for IntelliJ, and the other JetBrains IDEs. So that way you can see your code and your task activities all inside your IDE as well. So just to recap, we've gone through the requirements, the testing, and the tracking sections of SpiraTeam, where you can see how you can manage your requirements, your testing, the developer activities, the tasks, the defects, and look at the resource view. And then the last thing is the reporting. And we do have those dashboards you saw on the homepage, so we have those as well, but this lets you look at other reports in addition to that. So here you can see, for example, we've got some reports we've added to the dashboard. You as a manager or any other user, depending on your role, could add items to the dashboard for any items that you have permission to see. So you can go into the list of widgets here, and you can choose different types of report to add. And you can even add the same item multiple times, which might be useful if you want to get a view of the same information filtered in different ways. And for every graph, you can choose, for example, the classification or the author, the component, any of the fields we have for requirements, which could be a custom field, it could be a standard field, that's up to you. Similarly, for the test cases, you could choose any of the standard fields for a test case, the author, the engine, the component, the status, the priority, and any of the custom fields like, for example, review owner that we added, and you can then graph that against one of the other fields. So then once you've made your selection, it gives you the graph. You can flip it on its head if you want to see it the other way around, same thing here. And the other thing you could do is export it as a spreadsheet, which looks like this. There's my spreadsheet. And the other thing I might want to do is view it as an image. So you can also download it as an image. Let's go open in Photoshop. So there you see a graph as an image too. And we have got a new graphing engine in the latest version of SpiraTeam. So we've got some enhanced tooltips like this you can see. And we also have date range graphs, so you can view your defect counts over time. You can view your test case. So this is your test progress, which shows you the run of test cases over time. You can also see the test case count. So these are my total number of we have 14 test cases not run in total. You can see the progress against them each day. And you can see a cumulative count, which lets you see for those 14 test cases that we have, how close are we to getting it all done. In this case, it looks like there's a persistent 3 test cases that we haven't actually run, and we need to get those ones run. And you can filter it by release or sprint or just for the whole project. As well as the various graphs and charts, we do also have a set of printable reports, both standard reports and custom reports. And if you're interested in writing custom reports, there was a webinar we did about 2 weeks ago on how to do that, and we have published that on our YouTube channel, so feel free to check that out. And if you go into one of the standard reports, for example, let's do a requirements detail report, for example, you can choose to run that in any format, for example, HTML, PDF, Word. You can also customize it to have other formats like Excel for these reports, and then you can choose which elements to include. By default, you'll have the option of choosing things like the change history, any of the sub-items. So for a requirement, that would mean tasks, defects, whereas for a test case, it could be the steps, it could be the list of requirements, source code, and so on. So that way, these are the child elements. You can then filter by any of the fields. So if you want to find the requirements just for a certain release, you could go in here and just say release 1. Or if you've got custom fields or date ranges and you want requirements added in the last week, you could do that too. And then when you want to run the report, just hit the button. If you want to save it, you could put in here, my save report. and then it will be saved for the future. You can even share it with a team if you want, or if you want to run it right away, just click the button and it will start the reporting wizard right away. And it runs in the background, and when it's ready it will let you know, and you hit the button, and depending on the format it will either open in the browser. This is HTML, so it will open in the browser. If it was in Word or in PDF or Excel, it will open up that application and you will see the report. And here you can see all of your requirements, and for each requirement you can see the comments, the test coverage, the linked defects, the associated incidents, the tasks, the source code revisions, the change history. And you will see here we have a requirement with a rich text description with some bullets and a table and a screenshot, and that all gets embedded in here as well. And that's a typical requirements detail report. So that's an overview of the system. If you'd like to see other videos about SpiraTeam, SpiraTest, SpiraPlan, Rapise, or any of our other tools, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. In addition, please go to our website, check out the events section for other webinars. Thank you very much.